Hi, welcome to This is Tech Talks. Today we have Sonu Kapoor. Hi, Sonu.
Hey, how are you?
We have Jay Cooper Bell.
Hey, how's it going?
And I'm Lars Brink. And today our special guest is Ahmed. Sorry. How do you pronounce that, Ahmed?
It's fine.
Okay. And Ahmed is the founder of, it's called Base AI?
Langbase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the framework.
Yeah, the framework is Base AI.
Framework is Base AI. The product is Langbase.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're also GitHub star and a bunch of other achievements. Anything you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, really nice to be on the podcast. Thank you for having me. Quite recently, I started the company Langbase, so founder of the Langbase.com company. And baseai.dev is our open source agentic AI framework. It's specifically meant for the web developers, right? So if you write TypeScript, JavaScript, you're my kind of people, right? And I've been around the block for quite a while, from the early days of WordWag, contributing to Web 2.0, HTML5. Spent like 16 years building the WordPress core as a core contributor. That led to a lot of many things like Fax.js, contributing to React.js, Webpack, Gulp, and a bunch of other things. Ended up, leading the community committee side of Node.js Foundation, and jumped around from Google Developers Advisory Board, Google, Netflix, Airbnb, Cloudinary. In last 4 years, spent at Rapid API as VP of DevTools and Developer Relations. But at the core of my heart, I'm an engineer. I still write code. I've written a lot of open source code. And in fact, it was a small open source code repo, whatever you want to call it, that led to Langbase. I ended up chatting with building Corona CLI amidst COVID to track COVID data in a very similar fashion to how Perplexity works, but only for COVID. You could ask, if I go to pick up TP from Costco, will I die between these three, right? Because embeddings are not a new concept, right? So embeddings have been around for 10 years or so. And that picked up quite a lot. In fact, when COVID became a thing, we got I think 10 billion API calls within 2 months. So it was a lot. It went viral, no pun intended, amidst COVID, right? And that's how I ended up chatting with Greg Brockman, and he hooked me up with early access to GPT-3 API. GPT-3 was about a month old. And then he sent me a reminder, did you send your first request? So, I very specifically remember telling him, I don't care about non-profits and AI without much, knowledge of what OpenAI was up to. And I built a thing. That thing kind of grew up to a point where last year, one of our customers did millions of dollars in revenue on this thing when this was still not a company. And then we ended up building this thing as a complete platform. So Langbase is a serverless AI. It's, you want to build agents, memory, RAG stores. We have all of those primitives, but you can deploy all of them completely serverlessly on langbase.com.
Nice. So it was a bit difficult for me to understand what the product actually was, but now you're explaining it pretty good. So you can pick and choose your models, and you can mix and match with memory and RAG and embeddings and everything you need to set up an AI application. And I think you call it pipelines in your framework, right?
Like Lego for AI applications.
Yeah, you could definitely say that, right? So the thing is, 4 years ago, nobody was calling this agents, right? Agents still sounds a bit weird, but it's becoming a term that, people kind of know. Agents are APIs that can do things on their own, right? So I wanted some sort of encapsulation for AI that was pipe. So prompt, instructions, personalization engine. So it had your prompt engineering, your fine tunes, your, few short messages in it. And personalization was the RAG layer, the memory part, right? The vector stores, file store, all of that. And E was the evals engine, right? So again, the idea was just like you can have a React component. You remember when we didn't have components in web and we used to, every update, we would go to 19 different places to update index.html, right? So that is what it felt like working with chatbots 2 years ago. Chatbots are not meant to be agents, right? And people are asking chatbots to do a lot, like clean my kitchen, write code for me, do this, be my friend, whatever, right? And I was like, this doesn't feel like the right paradigm, right? So what I ended up building was Pipe. Pipe was very similar to components in React or different languages, or containers like Docker containers. So you contain a small piece of code and it is deployed and it just works, right? So just like we nowadays don't really care about what API means, we just know that a function as an API is very, very useful. Similarly, agent is as a pipe is super useful because it's deployed, it is serverless, and any amount of multi-agent architecture can work because any agents can talk to different agents, considering all of them are live, right? So that's how all of this started, right? And then we realized that even now today, like look at LangChain and Llama Index and a bunch of other frameworks, they're not deployable. They're meant to be research friendly frameworks, right? As far as I understand, they were researching those projects and they kept building more and more. And it grew as a CLI of sorts that runs locally in your terminal, but you can't you cannot do what you do with Next.js. You deploy it, right? Stuff like this. So Langbase started as a deployment platform early on, right? You deploy agents from get-go, right? And then we ended up creating a new primitive, which was memory. Memory is a lot of things. So all these LLMs have this problem. They are attention algorithms. So I don't know, this is by the way, I should have asked this before joining the podcast. Most of the people listening to this podcast are web developers, I assume.
Yeah, I would say so, right, Lars?
Kind of full stack, but yeah, a lot of them also web developers. So
Awesome.
it's mixed.
Awesome. So I'm also a web developer, right? And I do have some background in AI, ML. I'm an electrical engineer. But what a lot of people miss with this revolution is, why is this happening? And a lot of people think, well, ChatGPT is why this is happening, right? But what happened was in 2018, self-attention was invented by a group of amazing people. Self-attention is, I think the silly definition for that is, if Lars, if I were to ask you, like, which school did you go to? You would potentially quickly go back in your mind and you'll think about this XYZ school that was probably 5-10 years ago, and you will be able to answer that question. That as an algorithm is a self-attention algorithm. That was invented, right? So the next thing, everybody did was they downloaded all the public data and trained that algorithm on that data to create large language models. Now they think that that's how you can talk to any of the large language model about anything on Wikipedia, right? And they can quickly put attention to that part of their training and to the right words in your question and answer the right type of things, right? So that is the revolution that is powering ChatGPT, right? And that begs the question, right? What about my private data? That private data, whatever data, your notes or whatever, that's where the opportunity is, right? These LLMs do not know anything about your data, your company's data, your workflow, your priorities, your instructions, right? So connecting your data to an LLM and asking it to put self-attention on your data, answer questions in a particular way on your data, is probably where the product is, where the money is, why we are building all of this, right? So the next thing we did was memory, right? And memory helps you do this. Memory helps you acquire, retain, and later retrieve all of the data, relevant chunks of data from the question that you're asking. Like, for example, if I were to ask, who's the founder of Langbase and how tall is he? So definitely you're not going to find, how tall I am in my company's docs. But if I have a memory about me that I'm giving access to an LLM, that should definitely have my height in it, right? So it would be able to find my name from my company docs or some research, and then use my name to rewrite the second question, how tall is Ahmed Wes? Which an LLM can do, again, because these are self-attention algorithms, right? And then use my data because I provided access to that data and answer the question, right? A lot of people call these vector stores, which is half the picture, like Pinecone and a bunch of others. And when this space started, a lot of people just tried to capitalize on this space, right? As an engineer, you would imagine that because this is going to be a read-heavy operation, you would optimize for reads. But we saw that people charging 4 times more for reads on a database, which should be like, every time you ask a query, it is going to compare it with everything in the database, right? So we figured out that this was very expensive. So I ended up creating from the grounds up a new type of vector store, which has everything in it. Like it's a Redis layer with Kafka on top of it. And then there is file storage and a vector store. And combine all of these things, and we call it a multi-tenant memory store, right? For you, it's you can have per use case memory. So instead of having a giant big rag store like a database, you can have, well, here's a memory about my notes. Here's a memory about this conversation I had with this customer. And then you can attach, 10, 15 amount different memories to a particular run and get the right kind of insights through an LLM, right? So you could even use it in context like, if it's a customer support bot, you can use your entire documentation and the knowledge of that customer. Like, if they are on enterprise tier, use an expensive LLM or whatnot, make all of these decisions and able to answer and connect them or escalate that particular support request to the right person, the AE on their account, all of that fun stuff. And we created it to be about 70% cheaper than AWS, right? And this is like the making it cheaper was not the idea. Like the idea was to make it read heavy and reduce the amount of money you have to pay for reads. It turned out that we were like almost 70 times cheaper than Pinecone and 70% cheaper than AWS. And that's how our business kind of grew. People would switch away from Pinecone, paying $7,000 a month, and they will get like $491 per month. And I would send a message to our head of AI, like, are we doing something wrong? that sounds like an awful lot of money, right? So, but yeah, that's how, we have been growing. And so far, I think I was seeing AI tokens per day on Langbase.
Yeah, that's a lot. I want to give Sono the chance to ask your question, because I know, Sono, you're just writing some of your first AI application as part of writing a book. So you must be very interested in a product like this.
Yeah, definitely very interested to hear more about this. I mean, this sounds cool. Like this whole new approach you mentioned about, hooking into the memory of somebody else, right? That is very intriguing. And I think that's also very a helpful way to figure out, more insights about it. Are there any other examples that, you can think of that would be helpful, where you could see AI more than just a tool, right? More than just an AI tool, because like I said, if you're looking into the memory of other people, you're getting a lot more insight, right?
Yeah, it's like I think of this space in a different way. Like, so it's a little bit hard to just talk over it without actually showing what I'm talking about. So let me actually go to a particular AI agent that will help explain this concept. So this is our studio. Should probably feel very similar to something like GitHub, right? We are very much GitHub inspired. In fact, we are backed by original founder of GitHub, Tom Preston Werner, and CFO of Apple, and a couple other amazing founders like founder of Supabase, Recent, Snick, Socket. So, well, this is a AI agent, right? I'm calling it RAG Langbase because it can do retrieval on top of our documentation, right? And this, while you can share all sorts of prompts or whatnot, but this exists as an API, right? When you need to communicate with this, it is an API, as you can see here, right? Everything we do is API first, right? So right now I'm using GPT-4o, and I can connect it to any of the different LLMs, like 100 plus LLMs, open source or proprietary LLMs, you name it. I'm just using GPT-4o for this. And I'm asking, ignore everything you know about anything, right? And just answer from the memory so that it doesn't hallucinate, right? When it doesn't know anything. And then I'm asking so many questions. So what are the features of Langbase? When was it created? Who's the founder? How tall is he? How many students he has, right? This is a typical multiple needles in multiple haystack questions. And no LLM is able to answer all these questions in one go. This is where we are as a community right now. So if I were to run this, you will probably see that it doesn't know anything about anything, right? It cannot answer any of these questions. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it access to something about me and something about Langbase, right? And these are the memories I was talking about, right? And this is unstructured data right now, right? I will just show you in a minute that this particular memory has just, I went to my website, I downloaded it as a PDF, I threw it in there. That's it, right? I can be more, I can create more structure here, but it is generally not needed, right? For example, in this particular nodes markdown file, you will see that I have this information that I'm 185 centimeter tall, right? So, well, now it is connected to two different rack stores we call memory. And now if I run this, you will see that it will be able to answer, hopefully, all these questions. Let me clear this. There you go. So it now knows all about the features of Langbase, which it is getting from our documentation. It knows Langbase was created last year. I am the founder. And from there on, it was able to rewrite this fourth question, founder's height. Definitely not in our docs, right? It was able to rewrite and ask, how tall is Ahmed from another memory. And it is showing that by reference as well, that this is coming from this AA notes MD file, which exists in a different memory, right? And it was able to answer all these questions. And what's fun about this is you can go and do this with cheaper LLM. Let's use 8B, Gemini Flash 8B, which is quite cheap compared to GPT-4o. None of the pipeline, the APIs, the format of all of this would change because of this. Let me actually clear this. I think I need to attach the memory. Memory is there. I might have messed up a little bit. Live demos are always like this. There you go. Yep. So 8B. And here is the memory, Langbase and MWS, right? So now I'm going to run it again. And this is Gemini Flash 8B model. And you see, even this model is able to answer all these questions. I didn't change any of the API footprint, right? It knows what is Langbase. It knows I'm 185 centimeter tall, and I have like 108,000 students across different courses. But here's the fun part, right? Look at this. This was OpenAI, and this was Gemini Flash 8B. So if you run this a million times, or you can look at either one of those. This is $13,000 if you run it a million times. This is $17,000, and this is like $300 for almost the same questions, same answers, right? And you can even jump deeper and see exactly what is being augmented into this particular run for it to be able to answer all these questions. This is different type of content that is coming from different set of memories, which we are adding in the context, which is how this LLM is able to answer all these questions, right? So you can have a terabyte of memory, but we will pick the right top 20 relevant paragraphs and we'll throw it in the context, and the LLM will be able to answer it, right? It's basically very similar to if you tell ChatGPT that you are 185 centimeter tall and you ask how tall are you, it will be able to answer that because it has self-attention. So now with singular API footprint, unified API over 100 plus LLMs in this memory store offering, what we can do is we can allow you to create highly dynamic agents that can talk to each other as well and create multi-agent systems. Like, for example, this is actually available as an example on our landing page as well. So here's a multi-agent system. Like, this is just a demo, but if you get a spam email, each of these blocks are a pipe agent. You will see that this is a cheaper LLM, and it decides that this email, the sentiment is happy, I won 100 million lottery, and this is the expensive LLM. And it can understand, well, this seems like spam. So it's not going to do anything related to anything in responding to this particular email. But if I get a valid email, by the way, this is actually live. This is actually happening right now. This is not a demo per se, but these API requests are actually being sent right now. So this is a frustrated customer. API billing is broken. It decides that it needs to answer right now. Then it picks another LLM, another pipe agent that picks another pipe agent to answer this question. Like, this is basically, you can have 8 different type of agents that write your emails. So you respond to your family differently, your customers differently. And this is the professional email writer that is responding to your customer. And right here, you can literally jump into any of these pipes on our landing page. And you can quickly see, what are the prompts, which LLM we are using for any of these agents. Again, this is a demo, but it is a live demo, right? It's working in front of you, right? So this is Langbase, right? Our products are the primitives around pipes, which are agents, memory, which I just showed you to help connect your data to an agent, and tools, which are your functions and your API calls that all of these agents can call. And now what we have done is we have open sourced a framework called Basi, This is way new. Like I just announced it like a couple of weeks ago. What Base AI does is Base AI, you can think of Base AI as our Next.js, right? It works completely locally on your system. And inside of Next.js, there's a folder called Base AI. And if you know shared C and UI, it basically treats agents like that. Like, for example, this is the agent I was showing you. You can go in this code tab and you can copy this. What this one is going to do is Base AI add Ahmed/rag Langbase. It's going to download all the memory, all the agents related to this in your code base. And you can run it with Ollama or something completely locally. And if you do Base AI deploy, it will deploy to our platform completely in a serverless manner, right? So all agents, all memory, everything will become online. But if you want to just do an experiment, talk to, like I do that all the time. Like my lease was up and I didn't want to go through that 28-page PDF, right? And I also didn't want to throw it to ChatGPT. So I just created a Base AI folder and added that in a memory, used a local Ollama model and asked like, what is the percentage of rent increase that I can expect, right? And it was able to answer that question, right? So that is Base AI. And like we have a fun demo around all of this. Like you can run this pipe, stream it. We have a chat example with it as well. And there's a lot more fun stuff in it. Like, for example, I think one thing that was a discovery, not an invention, not something we built, was self-healing tool calling, which always trips me up. Like, for example, if I ask what is 185 centimeter to feet, this is again, I was trying to see the limits of this LLM. This is GPT-4 or mini, and my height is 185 centimeters. So I was trying to convert it into feet. Just like a human cannot do math in their head, right? These are self-attention algorithms. They cannot do math, so they need tools, right? So I was able to give it access to a tool which looks like something like this. When you run Base AI, here's a Next.js project. It becomes a folder called Base AI inside of your Next.js project. And inside it downloads the memory, the pipe, and the tools that you want. Here's the pipe, which is pretty familiar for anyone building with AI agents. It's a pretty familiar stack. I'm calling it to max tokens, 1,000 and all of that, right? But it has access to two tools. It can basically use an API to get weather and use this calculator to calculate any mathematical questions. And in this, I'm just explaining that, well, you have a tool and it expects an expression, and this expression could do any of these operations. And behind the scene, it's just, I'm using Math.js library from NPM, and this is what GPT-4o is going to call. So when I asked for what is 185 centimeter to feet, it figured out behind the scene that, oh, well, I have a tool, so I should call that tool. And it sent this particular JSON to this tool. But the fun thing is it actually hallucinated. So instead of asking for 185 centimeter to feet, it ended up sending inches, 185 centimeter to inches. But here's the fun part, it got back this result, 72 inches, right? But then it automatically sent another call that converts 72 inches to feet without you having to do anything, right? Because it figured out that the user was asking for feet, right? And then it got back this giant big answer, 6.609 or whatever. Ultimately, it decided to just answer this based on all this information, that 185 centimeters is approximately 6.07 feet, which is correct. It's hallucinated and it's self-healed without you having to do anything. And it is so much more powerful. I think what's going to happen is software engineering is going to become a lot less brittle, where we will tell AI about, well, here are all the functions I have. Here are all the functions I have. When the user asks something in natural language, go ahead and call these functions in whatever manner you see fit. And from there on, go give the user an answer, right? So I can also do this with memory. This is local memory. This is, as you can see, running locally on my system. So it is now connected to a bunch of markdown files related to Langbase, right? So it can answer, who founded Langbase, when and why, and how tall is the founder. I wonder if it has any information about me. Yeah, so there you go. Right? So right now it's using memory to answer all these questions and then calling a tool to be able to ask this question. And it's giving the source as well. This is coming from this langbase.md file. And the last one is coming from the, ahmedOS.md file. Right? And behind the scene, it is, again, if I were to show you that example here, Base AI memory, this is the memory I was using, right? It has basically nothing to it. And these are all the documents it has access to. So just two documents, langbase.md, which tells it a little bit about Langbase, and mlwest.md, which has a bunch about me. And it also has probably my height in there somewhere. There you go, right? So it is able to put attention to the right type of the context and use that to answer any of the questions that I have. That is the powerful paradigm we are building, right?
Lars, questions?
Well, I see similarities to other products and services, but this looks really amazing. You like to say that it's the GitHub for AI, and you said that there's the GitHub founder part of it.
Yep.
And it looks like the UI looks a lot like GitHub, but then the features are more like, well, I'm a Microsoft MVP, so I usually use Microsoft products. So it reminds me the most of the Azure AI Studio, or formerly the Azure OpenAI Studio, where you can add these, you call them memories, but sources for documentation and data that they can use to embed into the AI pipeline. So this is really cool, and similar to the Azure products, you can choose different open weight AI models. And what I really like to see there was the cost, that you could see that immediately, because that's usually hidden and just shows up at the end of the month, and you have to dig through tons of details to figure out, why did it cost what it did. So I really like that, seeing that.
Basically, I call this everybody's building everything space. So none of these companies had any studios when we were doing this. Now everybody has taken a lot of inspiration from us and from a lot of other startups as well. So yeah, I'm glad you like the analytics part. But I think I completely forgot to share, like, there are sort of things in here. Like, for example, I changed this model, or I added the word change here. Because this is 2024, we automatically create a fork without you having to do all that fun stuff. You can even see what is being changed, as you can see here, right? Like, you can obviously see all of it, but like, you can even go back in time to, I don't know, version 3 and see exactly what has changed since then. And then you can save it as a sandbox or deploy to production, or very similar to GitHub, you can fork this. This is a private one, but you can potentially look at a lot of public agents that people are building. We call them open pipes. Like, he's literally the founder of GitHub. He built an AI title generator, right? And it is open source, and you can fork it and create your own agent from very similar to how GitHub works. And I think I know of Matt Pillman, founder of Netlify. He created this geo simulation thing where he did a bunch of things where I wonder if I can find the live demo.
I was just about to ask for that one. That is so funny. And the
Right,
three of us will get the throwback.
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
the GeoCities, like I keep doing this. Ask Lars, let's try and see what comes out of this.
Jay, do you have a website we can test in the AI GeoCities version?
I do not,
GeoSim
unfortunately.
There you go. Right?
Oh, that's great.
Right.
Oh, so good.
So what's happening, and you can't see right now, but I'm seeing an alert window as well, which was customary back in the day, right? When we discovered there's this thing called alert, right?
Nice.
And it's doing is here's the prompt, and it's using this to generate all these things. Like
well, you can try the thisislearning.dev. Because Jay is familiar with that one, so then
there
you
we
can
go.
see
Yeah,
that
good idea.
it not only makes up stuff, you can also point it to a real website, and it'll do the GeoCities version of that.
Oh my god!
I don't know if that is gonna do this, but it's definitely gonna hallucinate something. This is learning.dev. Let's see. Welcome. Oh, there you go.
It's one word. It's one word.
It's not connected to the net, so it's not probably gonna go look at the real thing.
Oh, it isn't? Oh.
No, right now it is not. That would be a little bit more expensive, right? But what it is kind of reading this and generating a website based on just that, right? Stuff like this. Like, for example,
this was the golden age of the internet.
Yeah. But like reliving this all of after so many years is just, there you go, groovy course, right? So it's basically just, this is a true form of hallucination right now, right? But it's fun to look at, and you can literally, see, the cost of this. Like this was 0.007148, and this is what I got, like the Angular course, and this is what was generated, right? And you can, in fact, look at the entire usage, and it's like $6 for 500,000 tokens already used across like 800 runs. And if this keeps on running, it's probably gonna be $10,000 per million run, right? So, right?
Not cheap to be generating GeoCities websites. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. I know I was trying Langbase out the other day in Base AI. You and I were talking on Twitter there, Ahmed, and in Discord. But unfortunately, I got busy with work, actual work. But I do want to get back to this and actually like transfer a bunch of stuff I was using LangChain for over to Langbase. Once I actually get a handle on like what's available and all the different pieces, and like you built a huge platform here. There's so much to learn.
Of course. Would love to, see, what you build. Like if you go to our docs, there are some guides with a lot of interesting demo projects in it. Like this is an AI Devin demo. Everything here is open source, by the way. Like if I ask it to do a database thing, it will not create something. But right now, if I ask it to, create a paginated list of movies, you'll see that behind the scene, it picked up React as a framework, and you can modify all of this. Like these are everything is open source. You can see all these agents are actually working together and how it is actually turning up to React. And there you go. It has already went ahead and built this thing. So this entire project is open source, right?
Nice.
So yeah, it's working. You can do follow-up questions or whatnot, right?
Definitely have to go. I'm gonna have to go look at all those guides and stuff like that, just to kind of like wrap my head around how you actually go about building something where you stitch them together. Like what's on Langbase, what's on my server, what calls what. That's kind of like what I'm trying to figure out right now. But that's that. Let's talk about the future a little bit before we wrap up here. What's coming with Langbase and or Base AI? What are you working on now? Where are you going with all of this?
Yeah, I think we figured out that there's a lot of moving pieces in this space, right? Right, and it's like all of a sudden we have this new tech, a new industry that has some set standards from academic researchers who have never built products, right?
Yeah.
So I remember talking to this guy at this conference, and where's the documentation? And he kept sending me his research paper. I'm like, I don't want to read your research paper. Give me the docs to use this thing. Yeah. And he's like, who writes docs? I'm like, we do.
Anyone that's actually doing something does.
Yeah. So the entire idea behind Langbase is there's like 50 million developers who can call APIs, who do not have PhDs, who will never have PhDs, who do not want to do research, but they can call APIs, who would probably not go and try and understand what is an embedding, how does, semantic similarity search, prefix works or whatever, right? But they can build powerful products much better than you and I ever could. Like look at a lot of indie hackers like Level Zero. He built Photomaker. I bet he doesn't understand a lot of what is going behind that app, but he's making like several $1 million a month shipping that app, right? So the idea behind Langbase is to power people like this, who are developers, who can ship products, who can ship experiences, and convert all of this into APIs, right? Just APIs, no knowledge required. So one thing we are investing in a lot going forward is reference architectures. Just like you said, I need to see and piece together what works on this and what is on my code base. So I'm probably thinking a lot about reference architectures. That would just be, illustrations of, well, this is this and this is that. I don't think the state of affairs is going to change a lot with agents now. We have somewhat set standards of things, right? In fact, we were in a stealth mode for quite a while at Langbase, and we launched the company on 1st of August. Now we believe that this space has now matured, because earlier this year, what was happening is everyone would come in, I'm doing just like 7,000 requests a month. And then they would be doing billions of requests every week. The moment they figure out, this is how it works, right? But now I think there are some set standards that we have figured out that are probably not going to change. And last year, around November, it was like everything is changing so fast, right? And this year in November, nothing's probably changing. We have now some set standards that you can use, and they'll probably be around for a couple of years, so you can depend on them, right? Now is the space to probably jump in and build whatever you think of building in this space, right?
Yeah, I think at least for me, reference architectures would be like the biggest win. Like I don't learn by, going through courses and stuff like that. Like I want to look at something built and then understand how it all stitches together. Like your docs are great, don't get me wrong, but like I want to see like here's my server, here's the pipes I've created, these get deployed to Langbase, and my server calls this, and like actually like have something like, sure, it doesn't need to be complicated by any stretch of the imagination, but like seeing it all stitched together as like this is the product, like here's the end result, what is running kind of thing, so that I can then just like take that and be like, oh, okay, well I just need to like replace these pieces with my pieces and stuff like that, right?
Exactly. Again, like this is talking to a lot of folks around this kind of thing. We figured out like, oh, okay. Again, this is a weird space, right? There's so many moving parts, and the fun part about this is a bunch of this is not code; it's just language, right? And we as developers are never okay with just language, right? We used to have those as comments. Now it's literally part of our code, right? So I think that's where, like I was trying to find the blog post we wrote for this probably ask you right off if I could find that somewhere. Oh, I don't know. I'm sure it's somewhere around here. We did one reference architecture around how all of this works. And as you can see, there's a lot, we are experimenting with. But I think this would be a lot more fun once we start putting this out, like, what goes where, and, how do you think about this piece and that piece, right?
That would be so helpful for someone that's just starting, right? Your platform is huge. Like for someone that's deep in this, like it may make sense just at a glance, right? But for me coming into it, it's like, I don't know where each of the pieces go. And I don't know what piece talks to what piece. So like having something like that, like, hey, Jay, you're a developer. You're going to have a Next.js app in your repo, and you're going to create this pipe. And then like explaining like where things go. What am I deploying? What am I deploying to you? What am I deploying on my servers? What piece is calling what piece and stuff like that, I think would be huge for onboarding those new, the people that want to build things, the builders, right? Like onboarding the builders onto your platform, like that'd be huge. For.
Awesome. I'm really excited about that as well. And we are heavily targeting, we are creating components as well. So I don't know if we did Lang UI back in the day, which has like, UI components like shared scene, but for building your own chatbots. But we are going to grow this, like, create a sidebar, just copy paste this component, and it's responsive and whatnot, right? We're going to grow this library to a lot of components that we have seen around, like, just like in that AI Devon demo, you saw that this particular component, right? And it comes up a lot. Like one of our enterprise clients have so many versions of this, right? Internally. So they have a unit testing interface or whatnot, right? But again, explaining this just by docs or just by video, I think is not enough. So that's where we've been thinking about RAs. Yeah, excited to see, what you build in going forward with AI.
Yeah,
so.
We'll keep you updated. Lars, any closing thoughts?
Thank you for mentioning Lang UI. I hadn't seen that one before. That's really interesting. And you created that as well?
Oh, in fact, it was Bilal who created it. He is my youngest brother. So,
nice.
And we got him and his work into the company like a couple of months ago. It's an open source project, completely open, helping developers one way or the other, right? So,
well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing all of this with us, Ahmed. It's been great. Jay, do you have any closing words?
No, I've asked my questions. I'm excited to see what happens in the future with it.
Awesome.
And we have a lot of cog wheels turning in our head right now, like all these ideas and possibilities, and that's the magic of AI right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One thing I'll add at the end is I think a lot of people don't realize this, but I think web is going to be the biggest benefactor of this entire space, at least for the next 10 years. I could like count on my fingers like so few use cases of AI that are actually in production that are not on web that I use, right? Most of it is on the web. So web developers are the people who ship these chatbots or dashboards or any of the. Keep coming back to this conversation. I know Jay and I met at Google I/O and we were like talking like, oh, web developers don't realize this. This is their space, right? Yep. AI and ML has always been around. This is the first time there's an API for it, and APIs are a web native construct. They are coming to the web because that's how you ship products, right? So more and more web developers, I think, will start to realize that they can create functions and they can give AI access to those functions, and AI can just call these functions however the user is asking for, instead of them having to build a static layer on top of everything. Like I specifically remember Steve Jobs, 2008 or 2009, he said, why is half of our screen a plastic keyboard? It should just show up when we need it, right? So why is this UI I'm looking at all the time? It should just be there when I ask for it, right? Like show me this last 17 minutes of sales. I don't want to see just last 24, stuff like this, right? So I think that is how the software is going to change, and UI and AI are going to be the centerpiece in all of this.
Right? Makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I can visually see Lars thinking.
Yeah. $1 million idea right there. Yeah, that'll be the version 3, will be the dynamic UI where you just tell it what you want to see in the web, and it writes it ad hoc and renders it.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. This was amazing. I'm sure there's lots of people interested in this topic. No, they can go to langbase.com, and of course they can find it on the GitHub as well. A lot of this is open source. The pipes, a lot of them are public as well. You can find them on the Langbase site. So that's another cool thing, like what you're asking for, Jay, that there's lots of samples already with like all kinds of cool real world stuff and just fun stuff like the Geo Sim Cities.
Oh yeah, GeoCities stuff, man, so good. Yeah, thanks for joining today. It was great.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.